Hello, everybody. My name is Neil Foote, and I am the publicity director for the Denton Black Film Festival, and welcome to Soul Talk. This afternoon, we have a wonderful conversation with several African-American film critics, and we are going to talk about life as a film critic, what it takes to be a film critic, and if we have time, we'll talk about some of the great films of 2020 and what to expect in 2021. To kick off our conversation today, I really am excited to catch up with my good friend, Gil Robertson. He is the president and co-founder of the African American Film Critics Association, AAFCA. First, let's check out a little video about the organization, and then we'll join a conversation with Gil.
A certain organization, whether or not it's Academy or another organization, excludes all Black artists. We know the good work that we do.
Thank you so much, first of all, to the AAFCA for this tremendous honor. Very proud and very happy to be here with you.
Now, this is a room I was looking forward to being.
AAFCA had the bold vision to start an award show and fill a void. And what an award show it has become. It's amazing how the show has grown from just a few people in a small room to everything that you see here tonight. That is Black excellence.
Wonderful organization. Good God. It's about time.
And this is definitely the most important award I've ever been recognized for.
The more mature you are in your faith, the less evidence you need. But tonight, evidence is encouraging my faith. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for being here. Very kind of you. I know 4 of you. I don't know 7 of you.
It means so much to me to be acknowledged for this huge risk and this huge swing. I love you guys. Thank you, AAFCA. You guys are dope.
Hey, Gil, good to see you. How's everything going?
Everything is good. Good seeing you too.
Oh, it is so good to see you for many, many years. We spent many time together working on a number of projects, particularly with Tom Joyner. For those of you who don't know Gil, he is really one of the luminaries in this business, not only as the co-founder and president of the African American Film Critics Association, AAFCA, but he is an author. He's been nominated for any number of awards in his life. His articles have been published in numerous periodicals: LA Times, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Billboard, Fortune, Essence, Ebony Magazine, the Robertson treatment. How many years you been doing that, Gil?
Oh God, 20.
Yeah, 20 years, a national readership of 2 million. So needless to say, you've been immersed in this world a long time. What even encouraged you to get into film criticism, and what even led you to create an organization like this?
Oh wow. Well, as a kid, I used to enjoy writing, and my parents encouraged that. And so when I graduated college, I was on the path to go to law school, and but took a year off, and just to be out in the real world. And during that time, really felt like I wanted to revisit writing and perhaps develop a career for myself as a writer, meaning an author. And I was keenly aware of the fact that, as a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, right out of college, that I didn't have anything to, any kind of history to fall back on. And so I thought that if I started writing for magazines, that would allow me to build a presence in the industry as a writer, and that would help me segue into becoming an author. And so fortunately, I grew up in Los Angeles, which obviously Hollywood's based there, and had a few inroads into that community. And so I started covering music initially for a lot of different Black newspapers across the country. That eventually led me to write for rap pages. And then from there, I started made a trip out to New York and started writing for an assortment of national Black magazines. Now, with regards to AAFCA, that was many years later. It was in 2003, actually. And at that time, I had already begun to cover movies, both as a film critic and as a journalist, writing profiles and preview pieces, about films and the people involved with them. Nothing's new in this country, being Black. Though it was a very small community, a very tiny group of Black writers who had access to the studio system and who had the kind of were able to just operate in that milieu. And fortunately, I was one of them. And there were a few others, and we recognized that there were some needs and concerns on both sides, both for the journalists. Having access to key talent is the way that you develop and grow your career.
Yeah.
But also for the talent we were interviewing, they recognized that they needed to have Black people, Black journalists in the rooms with them in order to help them leverage their profiles and personalities. And so in 2003, we started the group. It was 6 of us. And since then, it's grown to a membership of approaching 100. Wow. And it's obviously most film critic groups are mostly known for producing their year-end lists, which is what we did for our first 5 years. And then we launched into turning that year-end list into a live event that's known as the AAFCA Awards. And that has grown into a tentpole activity during the Hollywood award season. In addition to that, we operate a year-round calendar of events and programs, partnerships with colleges and universities, major film festivals around the country, where we educate people about the cinematic arts and also about the career opportunities that are available to them as film critics and A&E journalists.
Wow. So you guys are really playing an important role, certainly for this very small universe of critics. But I would think it's been important to the movie industry as well. I mean, have you seen your role kind of been recognized as kind of a conduit, an important part of getting the word out about some of these films, or at least opening the door to criticism from a community like yours, since we know the data show that Black folks love films and we watch films and we can be influenced by seeing folks who look like you and I in describing films. Have you gotten that kind of respect yet, or is that still something you're working on?
Absolutely. I mean, there's still some inroads that we'd love to make, but certainly, I mean, just before talking with you, I had an awards meeting with the team over at Amazon. And I mean, one of the most fascinating things to me still is that every day, even during the pandemic, I literally field 20 or 30 phone calls and we have scheduled, meetings from the beginning of the day till the end with, various studios, various units of a particular studio, distributors, networks, streamers, who want to do business with us. So it's taken a lot of work. It's actually become a full-time endeavor for me, but it's certainly worthwhile.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, that's, I know when we first met, you were spilling all sorts of plates, so it still seems like you still are, but at least the the time that's being absorbed by AAFCA is really important. What about from Black actors? I mean, what's their perception of the role you guys are playing?
For the most part, we get a good showing in terms of the winners of our awards. I mean, certainly it's it's 95%. I mean, there's still some actors who unfortunately think other people's water is colder. And so, but we're working on them. But definitely just about every Black actor in Hollywood has attended our show. And increasingly, we're starting to see more and more talent from every background. At our most recent show, which was just before the pandemic started, Bong Joon-ho, who was the producer of Parasite.
Yes.
I mean, he attended the show. He was awarded 2 trophies, and I mean, he really turned the room out. You could tell he was having a good time. You could tell that he welcomed the fact that he was being recognized by an audience of people who you wouldn't normally see in that type of setting. So it was truly a thrill to be able to celebrate him and his work.
No, well, that's good. It sounds like the need and the cultural support for folks like him from a community like AAFCA is so important nowadays. On the one hand, Gil, I'm glad to hear that your phone has been ringing off the hook. At the same time, and I face this, with my role in Black Public Relations Society too, is kind of like, did you not know that we existed before this year? Do you sometimes feel like that, Gil?
This year of America's racial reckoning has been interesting. And a lot of people, again, I mean, we've been very, very lucky. We've been very, very fortunate. In the 12 years that we have been operating with our award show, which is our tentpole activity of the year, probably the last 7 years have been, people have steadily come on board, in terms of artist participation, industry participation, sponsorship participation. But there's never been a year like this year. I mean, after the protests, or during the protests, I should say, I got calls from so many people that ordinarily I wouldn't necessarily be getting calls from, and to express their concern, to express their allyship, and it just made you really scratch your head, because as you well know, we've been living with this for this is nothing new to any of us.
Right.
So I'm welcoming it, and I'm just going to see how we can leverage these new doors that have opened.
Well, likewise, Gil, folks are saying, aren't you tired of asking me same questions? And aren't you tired of being on these panels talking about these issues? And I'm like, look, if I get tired, then that's not a good sign, right? That means that folks like you and I have hung it up, and we can. I mean, it's just part of our nature and my drive this year is like, wherever I can have this conversation, whoever's going to invite me, I'm going to figure out how to do that, which I think for AAFCA is so important, because the images of African Americans and Blacks as they're portrayed in films is one big issue, not along with just how we get involved in the industry itself. Which the good thing is, Gil, we have some of your friends who are going to join us for the conversation. So I want to open this up to our next segment. And we will expand the conversation, and we'll continue to talk about AAFCA, of course, because you've got several members who are deeply involved. But let me introduce several of the panelists who will be joining us today. Anthony Ant Johnson, he's an independent film critic, and some of you may know some of his work already as the movie Brutha. He joins us here from Texas as well. I want to introduce Kathia Woods, who's an entrepreneur, radio host. She's creator of the Cup of Soul show and the Cup of Soul show podcast. which is a weekly podcast that streams wherever you can find your podcast. She is fluent in 5 languages. She's a graduate from Temple. I had to throw that in there for all your Temple Owl friends, who want to give you a shout out. And she's very active in the Philadelphia awards scene as well. And then I also want to introduce someone who is an inaugural member of AAFCA, Ronda Racha Penrice, who joins us here from Atlanta. Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful conversation, and welcome to Soul Talk.
Glad to be here. Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, listen, Gil and I have been talking a little bit about the role of AAFCA and the role of critics and his journey to becoming a critic. I'm wondering, Rhonda, how did you first hear about AAFCA, and were you a critic already, or did he convince you to become a critic? Talk a little bit about that journey.
Well, Gil has always, anything that Gil is doing that's positive, Gil has always roped me into it. So I don't think I had a choice, but Gil was on the circuit before I was, but he mentioned writing for Rap Pages. I was an associate editor there, and that was in the late 90s, and had always, promoted Black film and talent on the big screen as well as the small screen. So it was a no-brainer to participate and, just do what we can to, further amplify these voices and these stories that needed to be told.
That is great. What about you, Kathia? How did you end up becoming a film critic?
My story was completely different. I wrote about music for a long, long time. I come through the door via hip hop, back in the 90s when pre-internet, as I like to say, when if you could form a complete sentence and you could make your way down to an event and get the story, you got published. And I was working for an outlet, unfortunately, that no longer exists, lyricallyfit.com, and they wanted to start a movie section. And the person that they had designated, unfortunately, in our field, we have not everybody that's as dedicated, was being flaky. And they were like, oh, do you want to do it? And I was like, I love movies. Why not? And, I'd been doing the music thing for a long time, and I'm just getting older. And I was like, I don't really want to go to 50 million hip hop shows anymore. But, and I really liked it, and I was like, this is nice. You see the movie and you're out and you're home by a reasonable time. You know what I mean? It's like boom, 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 boom. And just started networking and making the transition. To me, it's not that same different from music. I mean, same thing, reach out, build a brand. I hosted a radio show, so it was easier to implement the movie part. At the time, I had an audience every Thursday from 8 to 10 on an internet radio station. But, definitely joining AAFCA made also a huge difference because I'm a member of some other organizations, but this one was specifically for us as Black people. I could speak to my peers about the challenges that I was having. I could reach out to Gil and be like, hey, how do I navigate this space? Especially him having done it for a long time. And that's really what it's about. I feel like no matter when you get started, but there needs to be somebody to tell you, okay, this is who you call, this is how you do it, this is how you set things up. And now the beauty of the thing is, I think, is you don't have to live in LA or New York to do this. Especially with this pandemic, we're learning that Zoom right from your living room, right? So it's all about how badly do you want to do it? How hard are you willing to work? And again, it's crazy it may sound, there are people out there willing to help you. And AAFCA is definitely a great way, if you use it correctly, to network and to grow your brand.
Oh, that's great. And Ant, you talk about kind of coming into film criticism and really valuing the importance of culture and providing that perspective to being a really good film critic. Talk a little bit about your journey of becoming a film critic and why AAFCA is kind of an important organization.
Yeah, yet another path from everyone else. My background is not in journalism. However, I am a huge film fan, have been pretty much my whole life. That's something that my family and I did every weekend. And I thought everybody went to the movies every weekend. Like not till I got older, like you don't even know what's showing. You just want to go to the theater. I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. But so I've always, I guess, I'm one of those self-proclaimed film critics on the initial, because that's something my family and I have always done. Go see the film and then we talk about it and discuss it and what was right and wrong and all this good stuff. Fast forward to about 7 years ago, I was, let's just call it, wanting to challenge myself to do something different. I consider myself a creative, and I said, what's next for me? And when contemplating something like that, I'm like, where's the void? I love film, and I just felt like I did not see or know enough film critics that looked like me. And I think that's very, very important, because I believe who you are and where you come from is going to factor into how you feel about a film, right? Or a television show, miniseries, whatever you want to call it. And so I said, hey, man, instead of me, playing defense, let me play some offense. Let's get into this. And that's really where I started, from scratch. And, you meet people along the way, you ask questions, you be curious, and you just have to start. Maybe that was the hardest thing. You have to start, put yourself out there, and be willing to learn. But that's what got me into this, and met Gil and the folks at AAFCA, I guess maybe a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, at Cap City Film Festival in Austin. And there's one of those opportunities. Met Gil, we exchanged information, we stayed in contact, and here we are. So AAFCA's been a great resource. Like Gil has shared his experience. So he's been doing this for a long time. So he's always available, able to get on the phone with him, ask questions. Hey, I'm here, I'm trying to get there. How do I do that? So he's a great resource, as well as my peers that are also part of AAFCA, because opportunities come up to where we're able. Kathia and I have worked together, also with DBFF in the past, so I'm able to get connected with other film critics of color, and we're able to collaborate and network and everything. So it's awesome.
That's great. And you mentioned an interesting component about you've just got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were kind of joking a little bit earlier before we came live, Gil, about everybody may want to be a film critic, but everyone maybe shouldn't be a film critic. And you talked about, Ann, about, well, you'd love to go see films. There's something different between loving to go see films and being a critic of films. And Gil, I want you to kick this off, and I want you, the others, to dive in a second. Is what makes a film critic different than just anyone else who can go to them and say, yeah, I liked it and that was my favorite. What are some of the things that a good film critic should have? What are those characteristics?
Well, not only, it's certainly great to have an appreciation for cinema, but when you're a film critic, it requires a much deeper dive than just merely giving your opinion about a particular piece. First you need to develop your voice, meaning you need to really gain an understanding of the audience you serve and the way in which you present your point of view, about a particular movie. Making sure that you have the basic fundamentals down for, being able to write a review. And understanding all of the different elements that are there. I would say that those are probably your two most important factors. Certainly, given technology today, it's not the way it was when I first entered into the business. Now that you have things like YouTube and podcasts and all sorts of other tools in order to communicate with an audience, it's become somewhat differently. Having a keen understanding of knowing how to edit, has become vitally important for those who have podcasts or who have YouTube shows. So I would say the most important thing, though, is having a voice and knowing how to effectively use that voice. To communicate your message to an audience.
Yeah, Rhonda, what are some of the characteristics that you feel good film critics should have, and those that you put into practice when you're doing a movie review?
Well, I bring a different lens because I'm also a historian and I specialize in Black American culture and history. So, like for me, I think one of the things that Gil mentioned was definitely having a long like history. You have to watch cinema. You have to know how to contextualize something. It's not just a matter of saying heads up, heads down. It's explaining why this may be important. There are films sometimes that don't meet the mark as far as audience enjoyment, but that are tackling very important themes and that, open the gate. And some films, they age better. One of the things that AAFCA does is a summer screening series in various cities. And so one of the films that we did virtually this year was Blackbird. And maybe at the time it wasn't as appreciated as it is now. So as a film critic, you have to be able to contextualize the importance of the film and not just, not just say it's good or bad, but also, again, Gil mentioned your audience. So you have some films that people are not looking for a deep message. Are you going to enjoy this? Is it entertaining? That is important as well. So it's all about knowing what the intention of the film is and being able to communicate it to your audience. And sometimes what's going to move your audience is not going to move another audience, and that's okay. There's a lot of diversity in this.
No, thank you. And just I'll plug your book, Rhonda. You are the author of African American History for Dummies, and there's a chapter on Black film and TV in it. And that's just to give again context to why you say your perspective adds that historical context as well. Kathia, what's your approach? Are there certain things that you come from the prism of somewhat different the music world and now applying it to the film world. How do you approach this?
I mean, some of it is similar. I mean, I think, when I was in music, one of the things, especially in hip hop, I felt it was really, really important to highlight women's contribution to the genre. Everything was so male dominated. And even within Black culture, no one understood that everything that moved in hip hop, a woman had her hand in it. Do you know what I mean? And featuring especially women artists that weren't, so overtly sexual, but are still good artists and fighting for their stories to be told. And I feel the same way about film criticism. I think as a film critic, you kind of have to find out where you fit in so you can get in. Like, you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like what we do on Couple Social is we highlight films by Latinos, by people of African descent, and women, because to me, those are the ones that need the coverage a little bit more. And also it aligns with who I am. So it's comfortable. It's not uncomfortable. I also agree with Rhonda that I feel like to be a good critic, in my opinion, you do have to be familiar with film made prior to 1987. It's the same thing for me as in music. Like, it doesn't have to be the thing that you put in and plug in your car for your personal taste, but to get an understanding of growth and the genre that you're covering, understanding where we come from, where we are, and where we're going. So I think that's really, really important. And the other thing is, like, I'm a huge documentarian fan. So I really try to, again, speaking back to what Rhonda said, is highlight films that tell important stories. You know what I mean? They may not be the thing that you run to the box office for, but with streaming options, that's something that you can take an hour or 2 hours of your time to get familiar with things, and hopefully that will spark some other things in you. So I do think, part of being a good film critic is to not just talk about things that are quote unquote popping that that people want to hear about, but I also feel you have a responsibility to educate your audience, introduce them to new voices, and let's not underestimate and think that people don't want to hear these stories, because they do. There's always one person when you introduce them to someone new and say, hey, look out for this talent, look out for this filmmaker. You're going to be hearing more, the Dee Reeses, the Ryan Cooglers, this year, Rada Blank. These were all people at some point that no one knew, and now are, directing multi-million-dollar projects. So again, inform, and you can do it in a fun way. So I do think that's part of our responsibility.
Oh, that's great. And Ant, you taken some different approach using data analytics to some of your film criticism. Talk about what you call you affectionately call the Ant bot. How does that affect? Talk about what that is and using AI and how that is really kind of the future, kind of where we're going with some of this.
Yeah, so Antbot is something that was really born out of, so being a film critic is not my only career. I have a corporate career in technology and software, data analytics, predictive analytics, and, I don't want to go too far off the deep end, but basically making predictions about literally anything. Right now, I apply it to the business world. I said, hey, I'm in this film space, why don't I apply it to film? So I took films that I've rated, every film that I've rated over the last 5 years, and built a model off of that. Now, what does that model do? Essentially, that model looks at all of my past ratings. What's the runtime of the film? Who's the director? What's the genre or genres that the film falls within? Right. So this is all information that can be used because based on the past, right, I can make predictions going forward. What would Ant most likely rate whatever film that is? So how someone could use this on my website, themoviebrother.com. Hey, maybe it's a film I haven't seen, which, I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of films coming out. I haven't seen everything, but for my fans that like my content and like the way I rate my films, they can say, hey, let me go look at this potential film that I'm considering seeing, enter in the information, and it spits out a score between 1 and 10. And I'm proud to say it's very accurate too. So yeah, I mean, it's just, it's been a great way for me to take what my natural gifts are, what my talents are, and, focus, apply it to my brand, which, everyone's really talked about. I think you have to be true to yourself in order to be a good film critic, right? To be have the courage to be honest, even when it might not be the popular opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But have the courage to stand firm on who you are. I think we live in an age too, which we get so much information. If something's not authentic, your audience is going to know it. You can't fake it, right? We can't fake the funk in 2020. So they have to keep it 100, and I love that. I enjoy doing that, and like Rhonda said, hey, it's not just a good film or a bad film, but why is it a good film or a bad film? Because that's critical. Because hey, maybe the reasons that I did not or maybe care for the film may not apply to you. So that's critical information that my audience needs to know, because hey, maybe I felt some type of way about a particular subject matter in the film, but it's it was a non-issue for me. I still want to take that in. So that's something that I keep in mind. And infotainment, inform you, right? Is it something insightful that I can share with you? Make you laugh in the process. That's typically how my form of entertainment comes in. If one of my video blogs or one of my written reviews, if I didn't get you to chuckle at least once, I missed the mark on something. But yeah.
Excellent. Well, I mean, thank you for that. If you're just tuning in, welcome to DBFF Soul Talk. We're talking with members of the African American Film Critics Association, AAFCA. And if you just tuned in, you really heard some interesting, you missed out on some tidbits for those of you who have been listening all along. Not everyone can be a film critic. If I can summarize some of the key things you all said is you got to develop that voice. You have to have a point of view. You should be a student of film, right? You need to understand film and watch it not just because it's thumbs up or thumbs down, but understand the history, the context, understand what makes it entertaining, understand why those actors who are in that film and who those directors are behind the scenes that kind of bring it alive. I wanted to spend a little time to talk about something that all of you have alluded to, which is this year that we've been living in 2020, and how that's kind of changed the way your business has, the industry has changed, but Kathia, it's also changed the way you guys do your business. And And I'll start with you, Rhonda. How have you been kind of managing your way through this year of critiquing films, those that have come out, identifying those films, and contacting and interviewing and talking to those people behind the films?
Well, through AAFCA, one of the things that AAFCA instituted was the virtual roundtable. And so, we are Kathia, Gil, we've all participated in that. For me, as someone who's always appreciated the value of the content that's being offered on television and streaming, 2020 has been very good at bringing attention to those avenues. And as we're seeing now, studios are valuing that as well, because going to the theater right now just isn't safe. And so we've definitely seen the elevation of that. And so we just done, Zoom has really made a huge difference. It's broken down a lot of walls, and sometimes some films that you would have only been able to get early access to, or at least interview people through junkets, those kinds of barriers have fallen down, and I don't think they're going to go up again.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Kathia, same thing for you. Is this digital world kind of made some things a little easier?
I mean, 100%. I'm going to say that as awful as this year has been in many ways, it's been also one of my most successful years. And I think because of the fact that studios don't have to shell out the money for set visits, you flying out for junkets, which is an expense, where they're not putting us up at Motel 6. So, all of those things. So it's given more access to more people. I mean, I know like today I had a day filled with junkets. And, I'm definitely taking advantage of the opportunities. I also think, like Rhonda said, this has been the small movies that normally get lost, the ones that have to come out in January, February, or, kind of like leave their fingers crossed in the summertime for people that don't want to see the big action thrillers, but still want to go to the movies. They have literally saved the industry, because big studios didn't know what to do with their big blockbuster films, but you still need content. You still need to keep the wheel turning. So, the IFCs and these smaller studios, Netflix was money from the door. Do you know what I mean? And, again, it forced people to look at things and made successes of movies that you're not too sure how they would have done in the format of a regular theater, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that we're paying attention to movies outside of the big studios. There again, some of the best movies I saw this year personally came not out of that system. I mean, Ant and I and Gil, we were at Sundance, and the movies we're talking about now are not movies that people spent $20 million from. You know what I mean? These were all indies and that are getting bought out. And so I think it's a good thing. I'm praying that going forward, we figure out a way to continue to highlight movies by emerging filmmakers, movies, that were made for less than $20 million, but are good, solid movies. If it means them being on a streaming platform in order for them to find an audience, then that may be the route to go. But I do think, we're seeing some work that we would have skipped, unfortunately.
No, I love that point. And she mentioned your kind of with Sundance, and your technology background. I mean, are we seeing new opportunities here for filmmakers this year that probably didn't exist?
I would say that I'm sure that there are in some way, but I would even go back, a few years. I mean, I remember the film Tangerine, which maybe came out of maybe 3-4 years ago. It was shot on an iPhone, entirely on an iPhone. So, I mean, we're just in a time now where it's never been in terms of access, right, to be able to put a project together. Now, you still need to be creative and do it in a smart and engaging and intelligent way. But I mean, I second everything that, everyone said. I mean, as unfortunate as 2020 has been with COVID and the loss of life and people sick and everything, in terms of this industry, it has created opportunities and access, definitely, absolutely through AAFCA for me that I would not have had, without, what they've done with things, like the round table. And yeah, normally I get the screener, but it's a whole nother story to be able to speak to the talent as well. And that just, takes things to a whole nother level. So, yeah.
And Gil, I mean, you've seen so many changes in the industry the last 20 years. I mean, this year is also, as the Denton Black Film Festival is facing, is a change in landscape for film festivals and how they're portrayed. I mean, what's your how will film festivals have to evolve with this new landscape, and how have they evolved this year, and what should festivals be considering about how best to address some of the issues that your colleagues have here addressed, of those emerging talent that maybe now have a chance that film festivals have been great on, but how do we need to look at film festivals moving forward?
Well, just like you said, they're going to have to learn how to adapt. One of the positives that come out of COVID has been because of platforms like Zoom and like StreamYard and others, it's really expanded your audience, your potential audience. Whereas, pre-COVID, the only people who experienced your film festival were those who attended physically. Whereas now, because of technology and these platforms, you could potentially have an audience that's participating in the festival from all over the world. And so that just increases the value of what it is that you're doing. Because of the acceptance of these new platforms, I think for festivals like yours in particular that are smaller than, say, your Sundances or your Tribecas or your South by Southwest, different people are able to participate, who might not have been able to otherwise, because that would have required them, leaving, wherever they're working, are living, and traveling into, in this case, Texas, for 1 to 2 days to be a part of it. I mean, now they can get right in front of their computer, be it on set in their dressing room or, at their home, and still be able to participate in your offering. So I think I think that what we'll see following the lift of the restrictions and things sort of returning to normal is you will see festivals utilizing, operating in both spaces, both the physical as well as the virtual. And I think that's a good thing for everyone.
I think so too. I think there's an opportunity to expand. I think you hit it, expanding audience for folks, and accessibility, I think, is the other aspect. I think there's rich content that Black film festivals are providing that platform, as we've learned from so many of the filmmakers passing through the last 6 years, that for so many of our festival goers would never get a chance to see. And Rhonda, you seem to allude to some of that and I want to maybe spend the last kind of segment talking about some of the content of some of the films that we've seen this past year and moving forward. Are there certain genres or film that we're seeing Black filmmakers produce nowadays that we haven't seen before, or other approaches that they're using that have given them new relevance during this period?
I think that we have a lot of these things were already in the works. So I think that we have seen, like with our Jingle Jangles and even with something like Project Power, is like a kind of expansion of the limits of what Black filmmakers in particular are known for. We've definitely seen, as Kathia alluded to, a greater diversity in storytelling. We have seen documentaries become more important as well. So I just think one of the gifts of 2020 has been, you know, really acknowledging the diversity of storytelling in the ways in which they are told in the mediums. And so I definitely look forward to that continuing creativity and the fact that we are crossing so many genres now.
That's good to hear. I mean, and are you seeing any kind of trends or or themes in some of the films this past year that give us some indication of what 2021 might tell us about films coming out?
I would just second that. I would expect to see continued diversity in terms of you know, people of, you know, color and backgrounds and so on. I mean, that's what the biggest thing that I've seen in 2020, and I expect that to continue. I mean, for example, I was the miniseries The Liberator on Netflix about World War II, Mexican and Native Americans who fought, which I had no idea of. Amazing miniseries. I mean, things like that. I mean, you know, and I, you know, war films, that genre, I'm very sensitive to. Because a lot of times, you know, we, in terms of people of color are not represented, you know, in, you know, these wars that we actually were there and we did fight in. But no, I would just expect to continue to see that grow. Uppity, the documentary that came out at the beginning of this year about Willie T. Ribbs, outstanding, 10 out of 10. First Black Formula One race car driver. You know, projects like that are important. And I mean, I'm excited, you know, I'm so excited to see, not only to experience and consume it as a film critic, but even for our young people, right, who don't necessarily know about these opportunities and what's out here, which right now, you know, you can do anything, anywhere. So anything that they can get exposed to see what's possible, is a beautiful thing.
I'm wondering, Gil, does the movie industry, are they embracing more the greater diversity in content that's out there now, as well as the filmmakers, or is this kind of are they accepting it as a reality, or is this just a fad that they see it's going through? I mean, what's your sense of reading the tea leaves there?
You know, Neil, I think finally this might be permanent. Of course, you and I and all of us, you know, have seen this story before, but you know, and we all know how business operates, and it's based around money, and the fact that more than 50% of the film's box office is generated overseas has just made it necessary, an absolute necessity to embrace diversity. And the studios understand that as this country has become more diverse, more browner, blacker, they have responded by populating, you know, their content with greater representation. And at the end of the day, it's good for business. And so I think that it's something that's going to finally stick. And I mean, my God, it's been a long journey, but we may finally be at the end of that particular challenge, you know, that so many creators of color, you know, have faced over the years.
And Kathia, I saw you nodding your head. You agree? Are we with the end of a journey or beginning of a new one? What's your feeling?
I mean, the other thing that is exciting, I mean, I always say Black people are global. You know what I mean? We're seeing some of the best Black films are not coming from North America. They're coming from Europe. They're coming from the continent. There's some exciting things being submitted in the international section for the award season. And I think it's really there's definitely a movement going on with Black creatives that are saying, we want to tell our stories. And the beauty about it is, you know, there's commonality in our stories, but at the same time, we're learning about each other. We're learning that, oh, this is what's going on over there. Oh, you are having this problem too. You're having this struggle. I mean, what Steve McQueen is doing with Small Axe is amazing, because for the first time, we're getting a perspective about the Black British struggle from a Black British man. So it's not like secondary, tertiary, you know, he is a son of immigrants. So we're understanding it. Like when we say things like the French national team that won the World Cup are all children of African immigrants. Like, that's not a cliche. That's a fact. You wouldn't have a World Cup if all these people didn't get on whatever mode of transportation and decided to come to France. So we're understanding it's not just Black people in North America, it's Black people in France, it's Black people in the UK, it's Black people in the Netherlands that are saying we want to see ourselves and we want to see our stories. So I think this is something else that studios have to understand, you know what I mean? And understand that you can't just be put up your little black square, as I said the other day, scream Black Lives Matter, and go back to doing what you were doing.
You know,
those days are gone.
And another thing, you know, that we've seen, it's been coming, but what we've really started to see cement is the presence of female directors and talent, really, you know, coming up. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot could be said about, you know, Ava DuVernay, but you know, you also have Gina Prince Bythewood and Anna Sante and just others, Channing Godfrey and Don Porter, who are really, really emerging as important voices in both TV and film. And I can't applaud that enough, that we're starting to see greater gender diversity, you know, in terms of the people who are creating the product, the actor, the directors who are responsible for the work that we critique.
I have to say, I agree, and I think you can tell. Like, you know, with we're talking about Miss Juneteenth. There's something, you know, she was pregnant when she was making a film. She is from Texas, that part of Texas. This is her story. This is her upbringing. All of that makes a difference in the creating of she wrote it. So it only seems right that she should direct it, because it's all in her creative tank. You know what I mean? And I think you can relate to it more, you know, you understand. Rada Blank, I mean, I feel like she was telling my story in a way, you know what I mean? I left corporate America in my 40s. You know, my mother was getting ready to have a coronary because, you know, I have a financial advisor background, and she's like, you want to do what, and do this writing thing full time? You know, just the idea that life doesn't stop at 40 and you're never too old to reinvent yourself. And again, showing the role of women in hip hop, you know, that we love this genre, but this genre doesn't always love us. And it's also in her movie, it's so New York, right? You can tell she's from New York. You can tell she comes from hip hop. All those things add to authenticity. You know, what's the first thing we always say when it's someone that's not of our background directing something or trying to speak of our culture? We're just sitting there going like, we're just shaking our head because there's a bunch of cliches. And these women have basically said, I'm not seeing these stories about us, so I'm going to create something. And these things have been, I'm excited to hear more from these women. I know they have more stories. And again, for me personally, in my top 10 list is really what half of it is with women creatives, because they've done an outstanding job this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're expanding the narrative with the perspective that, you know, up until recently we hadn't seen. And it's a perspective that, I mean, women make up more than 50% of this population. And so it's about time that that their voices are being, their stories are starting to leap to the forefront of film and TV.
And I just want to add one little thing. There's a movie coming out called Zola, and there was something, I know it's something small, but you could, when a woman shoots a sex scene, it's 1,000% different than when a man does. It's like a whole, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell there was a woman behind the lens. We were all talking about it when we left the movie. We were like, we know there was a woman. Like, there's certain things that were happening there, and I was like, you know, if this was a man, we wouldn't have happened this. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's important too, because they act like we are not sexual beings, you know what I mean? Or we can only be presented in some soft porn type of way. And it's nice to see women saying, no, if we're going to have sexuality, this is how it's going to be presented. We're going to add this to it, and we're going to give women eye candy too. You know, it's not just us being front and center. So that's definitely something that we all walked away from that film and we were like, you know, that was a woman behind the camera.
And also, what we do through the AAFCA roundtables is because there are so many different members and we're from different parts of the country and we're from different backgrounds, we have conversations that touch on topics that just would not be a part of a general film convo. So there's a lot of stuff that we're learning every day, and we're able to talk to people who are communicating with us from the UK, from France, from Italy, and so forth, from Germany. And
Hey,
it just
Deanne, I'm
conversations that we
wrapping up a
haven't
panel.
had before.
I mean, I'd have to agree. Again, goes back to, you know, I wasn't born in this country. My family's from Brazil. I was born in Germany. Like, my story is really, like, unique in that way. I grew up in a multilingual house. You know, we spoke Portuguese at home. You know, when you're young, you don't appreciate that because you're just like, you just want to fit in like all young people. But it helps when you're out in the world, you know what I mean? And again, it's so wonderful, like Rhonda said, when we are sitting and having these roundtables, and it never gets lost on me when they're like, it's so beautiful to see all this melanin. It's so nice to have, like, I don't have to be the national spokesperson for Black people. And we all know what that's like. You know what I mean? We're like, listen, I only know me. I only know this because this is my life. I don't know what's going on over here. I can't speak for these people. But it's beautiful to see. And like, my thing always is right in the back of my mind as these publicists are listening. I'm like, memo, memo, memo. They want to speak to us because we understand, and the conversations like have been church-like, amazing, sometimes emotional, because we're talking about things that are at the heart of who we are as Black people. And that's
the one that we had for Small Axe was just riveting. I really, really, really felt for those actors because, you know, for me, Small Axe, you know, as you know, the world over, everyone knows our story as African American people. And the remarkable thing about what Steve McQueen has done is he's, like you said earlier, Kathia, is he's opened the door to the experiences, to the stories, to the myths of Black people in another whole complete other space who had never had the opportunity to see themselves, see their stories told on such a platform in such a way. For, you know, for the Afro-British experience to be put on full blast, as well as the experience of the Afro-Caribbean community. So it's really, I agree with you that some of our roundtables have truly been, you know, a place of magic.
And this is not just good for Black people. This is good for the art form overall. Anyone who tunes into the AAFCA virtual roundtables, you're going to learn things that you would never get in other outlets. And the work that we are doing here is very, very important. It's very groundbreaking, and it's expanding our craft and our art form. It's elevating the game.
Yeah, AAFCA roundtables on YouTube.
1000%. And the one we did for Farewell Amore was pretty special too. You know what I mean? There is just something, I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like, you know, the higher power is intervening because they know that we're having these conversations from a genuine place. It's not a gotcha. It's not a clickbait or that type of thing. You know what I mean? I mean, not to knock anybody's hustle, but our conversations are organic and everybody is geeked up to have them. Do you know what I mean?
It's become a safe space for the artists to talk about, their work and their feelings about just being. And I think that's our intention, really, is to provide them with a platform to do that.
And that Farewell Amore conversation, she was in Kenya. So it is truly like global, and it's touching all over the world.
Yeah, we have a number of members, Neil, that are expats or that are just live in other places. We have members who live in Jamaica, who live in the UK. Anthony spent a year in Australia last year, in Canada. So we have members that are like Kathia, are actually technically not, but like Ruben, who are Afro-Latina. We have members who are full-time lawyers during the day. Kathia is actually Afro-Portuguese. Who are doctors, who are lawyers, who are from all backgrounds, professions, ways of life. It's the one thing that in January, as the year comes to an end, and as I look back on what we've done with this organization, is how the pandemic has really brought it together. I mean, during a normal year, I would have been busy traveling back and forth between LA and New York.
Yeah.
And doing this and film festival that, and everyone else would have been busy doing what they do. And we really wouldn't have had the opportunity to really, get to know each other and get to find out, what's important to us. And through these roundtables and some of the other programming that we've produced, it really has opened the door to that. And I'm appreciative. Like it was Kathia's idea, for instance. We've been doing a program all year that Ronda now runs called What to Watch, where we make recommendations about what people should be watching since they're spending so much time at home, both for adults and also for children. And yeah, I mean, it's just been really, really, really to work with the membership and to really find out what their goals and needs and wants are, and to be able to contribute to that in some way, or just to provide them with some a vehicle in which to grow in what they're doing has really been a lot of fun.
You all have been wonderful to listen to learn from. I know all of us listening in have gained some gems in just the work that you all are doing. I think is so critically important. Certainly when you started the organization, but I think more so than ever. So I'll give you the plug, Gil. How do we find out more about AAFCA?
Absolutely. You can visit us at any time on our website at www.aafca.com. We're also on Twitter at the AAFCA, THEAAFCA, as well as Instagram at AAFCA, and on Facebook at African American Film Critics Association.
Don't forget the YouTube channel.
And the YouTube channel at the AAFCA channel.
Hit that subscribe button. You go there and then hit the subscribe button and then hit the notice button. So when we have our new content, you be first in line.
You can always count on the Black woman to have your back. Right, Neil?
Look, of course. Well, listen, we've been chatting with Gil Robertson, one of the founders and co-founders and president of the African American Film Critics Association, AAFCA. Annie Ann Johnson, movie brother, film critic. Kathia Woods, she's creator of the Cup of Soul show and the Cup of Soul show podcast. And Ronda Racha Penrice, who's not only an inaugural member of the African American Film Critics Association, but author of the book African American History for Dummies. I'm Neil Foote. You've been listening to this wonderful conversation. The Denton Black Film Festival is down, it's coming up, believe it or not. It's a little over a month away. Please stay tuned, visit our website, check us out on social at Denton BFF on Instagram and Twitter, on Facebook, Denton Black Film Festival. We will have many exciting details about this year's conference, how to get tickets, what the programming will be included this year. So please make sure you tune in to this program and others, as we'll have more Soul Talks leading up to the festival and well beyond that. Thank you very much. I'm Neil Foote for the Denton Black Film Festival. Thank you, NBC5, for your sponsorship. We look forward to seeing at least many of you, if not in person, certainly virtually. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.